Hello everyone. Welcome to On the Bench, the first official episode. I'm Roshan Bachu and I'm the treasurer of the society.
I'm Abby and I'm president of the society.
I'm Josh, I'm the vice president of the society.
I'm Oliver and I'm a member of the society.
And I'm Tyler, also a member of the society.
So if you don't know, me, Abby and Josh are part of the committee, and we've got Oliver and Tyler as our two guests today. So I think we should just get it under the way and let's go over the results of this weekend. What do we think? How have each and everyone's teams performed, and what do you think about other teams? We'll start off with Tyler. How do you think Chelsea performed this week?
Yeah, I'm on Chelsea.
I'm going to be honest, I was disappointed. I think as a whole, we played quite well. I'm sad to see Chilwell go because obviously our Frank's built this system around our fullbacks. They're a very essential part playing those overlapping runs, especially as we play very narrow forwards. Chilwell and, as you'll see, Chilwell and James's position are very, very high up the pitch. They're normally sitting on the halfway line pretty much the whole game. So to be missing Reece James is a big hit. And obviously, Azpilicueta's a great defensive fullback. But in those attacking areas, he's, especially that season when we had Morata, everyone remember those 8 assists he had with the crosses to Morata. But Tammy seems to be playing more of a pressing forward role than a target man. So I think if we play Giroud with Azpilicueta, I think it will work slightly better because Azpilicueta tends to come inside. So those kind of dinked crosses into Giroud will probably be quite effective, and I think we may potentially see that come into play against Arsenal. But I was really disappointed to see Chilwell go because we have atrocious left back, so
he can't defend that.
We could potentially see us go 5 or 3 back against Arsenal. Knowing how weak that back line is at the moment, there's some decent individuals in there. They just haven't seemed to link as a team. But I was impressed with Mason Mount again. I think he's arguably our best player this season. Again, Thiago Silva, probably his best game in a Chelsea shirt. Obviously getting the goal, and he made some key tackles. One that stands out to me is he made a really great double block, a shot that would have caused Mendy some problems. But I think as a whole we were good. Werner was disappointing again. He probably could have got a goal or two. Happy he got an assist though. But I think as a whole we performed well against a West Ham team that have actually been quite in form at the moment, and to get 3 and a clean sheet is nice to see. But I think there's some individuals that I'd like to see Havertz potentially get some more game time, because I think he just needs the more on the pitch he is, the more he'll get used to the system. But yeah, I think as a whole I'm impressed, but there's just some individuals and obviously some injury concerns we have with Ziyech and Pulisic coming back this week was nice, but obviously I don't want him to rush back in and then him get knocked. But Ziyech has been fantastic when he's been on the pitch, but the minutes have been limited. So
yeah, but where would you put Havertz in our team at the moment then? Whereabouts would you play him? Because at the moment,
I'd like to see Mason Mount play a slightly deeper role. So
would you alongside Kante and then
I'd
Havertz
almost like
in front?
to see. Yeah. Because at Leverkusen last year, Havertz predominantly played as a shadow striker, and he was so good in that role because he could just sit off, take the second balls and drive. He almost would overlap the striker, and he'd just appear in these areas you just wouldn't expect him. And I think him working alongside Tammy, with Tammy having really good ability to hold the ball up, but also Tammy's movement off and on the ball is, people don't talk about it enough. He's so good at just getting in the areas where he's needed. He does the dirty work. He doesn't maybe score as many goals as maybe potentially not Chelsea fans would be like, yeah, Tammy's not that good of a striker because, he's not popping in goals every week. But the work he does off the ball is similar to Mason Mount. Mason Mount for me, is probably top 5 midfielder in the league. I think with age, he could potentially be one of the best midfielders in the league. He reminds me so much of Frank Lampard in his early days, because Frank did play in that attacking midfield role when he joined Chelsea from West Ham. And just slowly over time, as he matured his game, he kind of sat deeper and deeper and deeper. And then, obviously, as everyone know, that prime role where he sat next to Essien. I can see that similar partnership with Mount and Kante. I'd like to see him play that deep role, almost like a box-to-box. So Kante can stay in that traditional single pivot, but Mason Mount will then come back to help defend. And then for now, it would be nice to see him play on that left hand of a 2 to cover for us missing Chilwell for now. I think it could work quite nicely, especially with Jorginho being in and out of form at the moment. And I don't think he's particularly in favour with Frank. And it's nice to see Kovacic in and out. And obviously, he had a fantastic season last year. But you can't drop Kante from this squad right now. You can't drop Mason Mount from this squad right now. So I think if we can get Havertz on form, and obviously, as we saw last year, something that popped up to me on Twitter actually was think about Christian Pulisic last year, how people were absolutely obliterating him at the start of the season. And then suddenly after lockdown, the Premier League resumes and
he was a beast.
He was on fire. And I'm hoping we'll see a similar thing to Havertz. He just needs that time on the pitch and that time to just adjust to the system and see what his role is in this squad. Because I think he looks a little bit lost at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think like the effects of COVID help as well, obviously.
Oh yeah, obviously he had 3.5 weeks off. So
and Frank was still impacting him as well. So it's it's going to take time as it is. Like all the best players take time. I mean, like Fernandes, he settled in straight away, but sometimes it's different for some players and different for others. But
I think Man United kind of adjusted their system immediately to build around Bruno. So Bruno was never going to be bad at Man United because immediately he was the key figure in the squad. Whereas I don't think Havertz is the key figure in our squad.
The thing for us is, as obviously Man United fan, we lacked loads of creativity, and I mean we lacked heavily. We just couldn't get chances off, and we didn't have someone in a cam role who could just put little balls in or stuff like that to help us.
You're almost taking away everything good that Rashford had for your squad because he was trying to make up for those roles.
100%.
He comes so deep to try and pick up the ball, and then where he was so good at exploiting space in behind, he just couldn't be at 2 places at once, and it was almost like Bruno was perfect for you. He did exactly what you needed.
Because the thing is as well, we basically play Bruno as the most open position whatsoever. He's a cam, but he's on free roam. This guy moves wherever he wants on the pitch. I think is the reason why we allow him to do this is because everybody else is set in stone as to where they're playing. So when we've got Bruno running where he wants to be, he can be as creative as he's want. That's why we've now started making more chances. And obviously our finishing isn't still the best. It could be better, but we are getting chances, which is what we want. And I mean, for Chelsea, I believe, with Havertz, I think he just needs support with him, because I know in that Bayern squad where he was playing, he would have Leon Bailey out on his left or right side, either or, and Bailey would always push with him. And I think Havertz just needs someone supporting him down the wing as well, just in case.
I think if we do end up playing him in the 2, then I think he obviously, when he was playing in a 2 in midfield at Leverkusen, he was playing on the left-hand side. I think he does prefer it, especially teams in the Premier League subconsciously attack down the right-hand side. It's just something that happens in the league. I'm not entirely sure why, but they do predominantly attack down that right-hand side. So he loved, like you said, with especially Leon Bailey on the left-hand side, he just almost sit on the last man. Bailey would run in behind and almost make a dummy run for Havertz to pick up the ball in a deeper position. And then he can then lay it off to Leon Bailey or drive up the pitch and create chances. And I agree. I think potentially Timo Werner could do a very similar role with that. And I think that could be potentially a good way that we can get them both working. But I don't think we can do that until we have Chilwell back, because our other fullbacks don't give that defensive cover that we'd need if we're pushing both of our left-hand side very high up the pitch. Obviously, we'd be very exposed, and it'd be good with Mason Mount if Mason Mount's playing on the other side, because Kante can kind of shift across to cover and Mason can run up and down that channel that will be built in the middle of the pitch. But I think for now, we kind of have to be cautious of we're going to be covered on the right-hand side, but on the left-hand side, we're really going to be exposed over the next few weeks until, obviously, we hear a little bit more information about the Chilwell injury and then give him time to recover and get back in the squad, because obviously I don't want to rush him back in and then suddenly we're Chilwell's out for 3 or 4 months and that's our season over.
It never helps. It never helps. I'd say let's switch to we'll go towards Bolton for Ollie. How do you feel Bolton did this week?
Horrendous. I'm going to be honest. It was not an enjoyable weekend to be a Bolton fan. We had 5 games in a row where I thought, this is the turning point of our season, because we didn't have a great start to the season, but we had 5 games. I think it started with the Salford game that was broadcast on Sky, and I think we won it 2-1, and I thought we played really well. Defensively we were solid. We had a couple of players, Santos and Baptiste. They started to look really solid after having a bit of a shaky start to the season. But yeah, we had those 5 games, and then we went and played Port Vale at home, and I don't think I've ever seen such a poor performance from any Bolton team, to be honest. We lost 6-3. We were 6-1 down at one point. It was shocking. It was we just weren't functioning as a team. I don't know what happened after after the previous games, but something changed, and it was not enjoyable to watch. It wasn't good football at any point.
Yeah, because I know from your last 5 games, you've got 2 wins out of the 5. You had So your last loss, and then you had a win before that, and then 2 losses, and then another win. And you're currently sat 15th.
I think we're about 15th. Yeah. We went and played Cheltenham, and we got a scrappy 90th minute winner. No, I thought we played well, and Cheltenham are 4th in the table currently, so they're doing decently. So that was a really good win to get. But we're about 4 points off the playoff spots, so it's still possible. At the start of the season, I was kind of thinking, oh my god, we're genuinely we're going to go down to the conference. And that was genuinely scary to come from a point in the 2000s where we've got players like Okocha and Campo, and then just watching them fall down the divisions. It was scary. It was scary to watch, especially with the financial situation that was going on. It was not. It was not enjoyable as a Bolton fan. It hasn't been enjoyable football for years. I'd say that this is actually watching them. This is the most enjoyable football I've seen in a while, despite the occasional shaky result. But I just think some of we had a new manager come in. We had Ian Evatt come in. He brought in pretty much a whole new team, because we're still under transfer embargo until January. So we've only been able to get free transfers and loans. So he hasn't been able to build a team that he maybe want, because he came from Barrow, and he obviously brought Barrow up into League Two. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. I know there's a lot of Bolton fans who after the last couple games want him gone, but I just think give him a bit of time. We haven't given a manager a lot of time in a long time, if you know what I mean. They've all been given a really tough job with Ken Anderson owning the club a couple of years ago, and he didn't put any money. He's siphoning money out of the club essentially, and it meant players would go unpaid. Therefore, then there's no motivation to play for the badge, and that's something that we hadn't had in years. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with the rest of the season, and whether we can, change our run of form. I think we've got Carlisle on Boxing Day, and they're 3rd in the league. So, but hopefully we can get. I'll take a scrappy win at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
we just need those points.
yeah, a win is a win, to be honest. You're currently sat 15th, 6
Yeah.
points off, 6 points off of the playoffs,
Yeah.
which I reckon isn't too bad considering how everything's gone. I mean, from what I can see,
I think we managed to get about 12, 13 points from five matches, and I mean we're currently only on 25, and that was like at the time that was over half our points. So yeah, it'll be. I'm hoping that we stay up this year. I can't see a world in which that we do go down. Yeah. I think after the recent form, and especially some of the teams that are down there in the relegation zone.
I think the key thing now for you is going to be to keep hold of your manager, because I mean, regardless to whether they're playing elegant football right now or not, you have to give them time to find out how they want to play their football.
Yeah.
And you can't just, you are going to get relegated if you just keep giving managers 2 months and then sacking them out because you're not quite
exactly
what they're doing. So you definitely need to give them time so they can settle in and find what football they want to play and how you're going to tackle this problem that you're in right now. And I think especially being on a transfer embargo, obviously we're weeks away from that ending, but I think you definitely need to give him time.
Exactly.
Give him at least a season now, because he's not been able to bring in potentially the players he'd like to bring in. He's not going to really have a lot of. He wouldn't have had any money to bring in players. He would have been entirely relying on loans and free transfers, which in your position is a risk, especially in League Two, because you'd potentially be looking down into non-league for players who are performing to bring up into a professional contract if they're not on it. But obviously, a lot of them in the higher tiers of non-league will be professional. So you'd be trying to.
So it's only in the last week that he's actually been given the role manager. So before we had a guy called Tobias Phoenix who brought in some players. So obviously Ian Evatt couldn't build the exact team that he wanted, so he couldn't go out and then get all the players that he wanted. He could get a few, but a lot of the players came from Phoenix. So it will be interesting to see in the new year. Firstly, what he does with bringing in and out players and who he wants to send away on loan or sell, but what he does with the money that does become available.
I think you may potentially be relying quite heavily on pre-contracts, knowing that in January players will be coming up to the end of their contract, and you could potentially start be looking to rattle some heads and bring in players from clubs who they're potentially been playing at a higher level. And disappointing results, or maybe not the style of football they want to be playing, and it's coming to the end of their contract, and you can be potentially picking up some quite talented players who are kind of gone under the radar a bit. So
definitely give him till at least the end of the season, see where we end up.
I'd say he needs to stay until at least January next year. Give him a full calendar year with the club. Give him 2 transfer windows, an opportunity to finish this season out, and a good opportunity to start next season, and you'll be able to better assess what's happened over the calendar year. Than just.
I would hope that this year
anyone chance.
I would hope that this year we do possibly get relegated, depending on these next few matches over Christmas and New Year will be so important. It's, depending on, especially because it's such a varied league. Anyone can win.
100%.
If we're in 15th, we could still beat Carlisle, who are in 3rd. So I mean, there is an opportunity for us to really push here, and I mean, it might not be automatic promotion, but even playoffs would be ideal. Give ourselves the chance to get ourselves out of this division, because we've only actually ever been in this division once. That was in, I think, like the 80s. It was, and we bounced straight back up. So hopefully we can do it again.
I mean, I'd love to see Bolton back in the Premier League if possible.
So would I.
I remember the days.
Kevin Davis is your striker and captain. It's beautiful those days. I used to love it.
It's like Johan Elmander.
It's a bit of a nesting ground for Premier League clubs, similar to like how Southampton have been over the last couple of seasons. I remember quite a lot of Bolton players moving on to to higher clubs. So it would be nice to see an old face back up in the Premier League. I agree.
Yeah. Give it a few
I
years.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I would agree with Tyler in saying you do need to keep your manager for probably a calendar year. Maybe even push it till a whole season and a bit. Because realistically, I know keeping a manager for a long time is something you do need in order to get them to perform. I know I'm saying that, and we've probably sacked God knows how many managers in the past couple of years. But for us, when we had all the great managers will take their time with teams and perform. We had Ferguson, who first 3 seasons wasn't the best, and we were all like, "Yo, should we get rid of him? Should we get rid of him?" We kept him, and luckily he turned out to be a great manager. Did the same.
Do you feel like you're potentially doing that now, and they're trying to almost tempt fate, keeping Ollie in for this long?
I feel like maybe, but the thing is, for me, I always say Ole as a player, amazing. He's probably one of the best bench players at Man United that I've known, where he comes on instant impact. But for him, in terms of managing, I really don't see it.
It shows how good your squad is, that no matter how poor you're playing in that match, you always seem to scrap results. And I honestly think with a manager, even like Max Allegri, who's obviously he's been out of a job for quite a while. I think a manager like him who comes in with this squad you've got now, he'll bring in an Italian defence. You might even see a Chiellini come in the Premier League for a season or two, maybe do what Thiago Silva's done. Just bring in that experience or stuff or just that experience and almost be that general in the back line that you need.
Oh yeah, 100%.
What he could do with your club, you suddenly come from people being like, hang on, if Man United win this game in hand, they're going to be second, to being like, how are Man United not in first place?
Yeah,
your squad, you need a striker and a general at the back. You've got 2 goalkeepers who are very good, battling for a position, which is exactly what you want. You're suddenly turning this same squad that people are like, no, there's no chance. They shouldn't even be in the top 4. How even are they about to be second? To being like, they are going to be challenging the title every season, and every time they step on the field, they're going to look like they're going to be a problem for any team in the league. And obviously, you've just dropped down into Europa, and I know.
Oh yeah.
No, that's disappointing, but it may potentially bring you a trophy depending on results. And obviously, we've seen Tottenham, but Tottenham is a club I'd like to get onto in a bit. But we'll stick with Man United for a little bit. But how do you think they?
For me, I feel like this week we played against Leeds. We played amazing. We knew Leeds are going to come at us physical, and they were going to. And Bielsa, he's already said, even at the end of the game, he said he's not looking to change the way he's going to play. He loves playing where he pushes his fullbacks forward, he pushes his wingers forward, and he basically just leaves 2 at the back, even 3 when he leaves Calvin Phillips back. But the thing is, for me, we knew they were going to break us if we played our normal slow tactic, possession, counter, and all that stuff. We knew they were going to ruin us. We had to hit him. We had to hit him fast. We had to hit him hard, and we did that. McTominay 2 goals in 3 minutes, perfect, great start. Then we let Bruno keep doing what he's doing, making his dummy runs, making runs in behind. He lost his marker of Calvin Phillips, bang, another goal. This week was something that we haven't seen in a long time from United. Obviously, we did see a 5-0 win against Leipzig, but it wasn't the same. That Leipzig game, we sat back for so long, then countered when they had no one.
I think the difference was in that Leipzig game, Leipzig were genuinely terrible. But in this game, Leeds didn't look that bad. I think it's the first time this season I've seen Manchester United concede 2 goals, and it's not really been a problem. But obviously, I think in that kind of style of play you played, it was almost like, we'll score a goal. It doesn't matter. We'll score 3 more.
That's that's something I want to see from United. I want to see us score goals, because we don't do it that often.
You just oozed confidence, and I think with those players you have on the field, you will always get results if you are oozing confidence. And I think the problem is I think in time some of your players haven't quite backed the system.
The thing is, for me, it's with players in terms of things that we like. It's not players have got stuff to deal with off the pitch as well as on the pitch. Like at the moment, we've seen, okay, everyone will probably have a go at me for this or say stuff about it, but we've got Lingard, who he was very good for us. Thing is, he's dealt with so much stuff off the pitch, and you can see it's affected his performance. So for like him, he needs to sort that out first before we know for sure we can bring him back. It's same with Maguire. Maguire, okay, he's even before he had his whole escapade with the Greek police, he wasn't the best. He hasn't been his best. For what I think he needs to do is we need to leave him out for a couple of games, let him set himself properly, get his head set get the right mindset, and then from there, then we can start to use him, because we played in Sheffield United. You could tell straight off the bat his head wasn't in the game. Making that back pass to Dean Henderson, that just wasn't needed. That back pass to Dean Henderson just threw him under the bus, pretty much. That's something we shouldn't be having.
I think the Maguire is still a strange player to me. Like I don't particularly rate him as a defender. I think in the box, I think he's fantastic. And I've seen lots of stats on Twitter going around about he's got like the most aerial duels won in the Premier League. But with someone of his height and his stature, you expect that. Like if he doesn't get that, then it's a problem. But the thing is, when Manchester United brought him in, you needed someone who was just going to plug the hole in your back line. And it kind of felt like you panic bought him. Like you were like, oh, Maguire, he's played well. Let's get him. And then you're like, Leicester, how much you want? They're like, yeah, we want 80 mil. And then you go like, okay, we'll offer you 60. They're like, no, 80. So you're like, okay, fine, we'll pay you 80. Like, I don't feel like Man United particularly cared about the price. They just wanted to get him in. And he hasn't impressed me. On the ball on the floor, I think he's one of the worst defenders in the league.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
He can't read runs. His movement is so sluggish. He gets caught with his back turned to the play. I've seen it multiple times this season where crosses have come in and he's looking for a marker. Like he's hoping that ball's going to come in the box high so he can win the ball. Because if you drive the ball across the Man United box, you will score 9 times out of 10.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to be honest, luckily for us, when going into that Leeds game as well, we knew Leeds concede the most amount of set pieces in the league. So we knew set pieces were going to be a thing. They knew it as well, that it was going to be a problem for them when we've got Maguire and Lindelof in the box. Obviously, they kept marking Maguire tightly, which left Lindelof quite free towards the back post. But even in that Leeds game as well, Maguire, he did look genuinely. He looks like what's the phrase? A deer that's in like the headlights or something like that. I don't know what the phrase is. Yeah, that's the one. You get me.
He's had some great performances for Man United, and as much as I hate to admit it, he has had some really good performances. But
Newcastle in our 4-1 win against Newcastle, he played amazing that game.
I think the only time he shines is when he's not being attacked and he can sit and play those long, deep diagonal balls. He reminds me so much of David Luiz. Like David Luiz is such a similar player to him. He's so fantastic in the air. Physically, he's amazing. But as soon as that ball is played on the floor, he just gets tangled in his own feet. He almost gets lost in his own mind. And what he brings to Man United is fantastic. And I think in a back three with like a Chiellini or a Koulibaly next to him, someone who's going to do that dirty defending, and he can kind of just roam a little bit wider and spread those long diagonal balls. I think he could be fantastic for you. I just don't think him and Lindelof together is the right partnership. I think both of them play the same role, and it causes too much confusion.
The thing is, for me, I know when we've played games, so Lindelof, without a doubt, at the moment, is probably one of our most best and experienced centre-backs we've got in our squad.
I've been really impressed with him this season.
He has been very good. He's always been good, but the thing is, he's one of those players that, like I'd say with players like Tammy and Mount and stuff like that, they're all players that go under the radar. Even Ward-Prowse, he goes under the radar as well. They've all been under the radar. The thing is, when they start to perform is when everyone starts to notice them. If they don't, when they just have their generic old performances, everyone's like, okay, cool, whatever. When they start to produce something, so like we've got Ward-Prowse is now sat on 3 free kick goals, and he's going to probably catch Beckham's record. He's got God knows how many games left to get 3 more and beat his record.
And no one will care about it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think he should be doing it in an Arsenal shirt, though.
Exactly. Do you see what I'm saying? No one will care about. I mean, Ward-Prowse fits perfect in that Southampton team, but like the thing is, these players that go under the radar, they don't get the credit they deserve. And the thing is, I think for them,
I think that's always been a problem with the Premier League, and will always be a problem with the Premier League.
Lindelof just isn't performing, not because he does perform. He just doesn't look as good, and the reason why he doesn't look good is because he's basically the panic pass. Maguire panics and passes to Lindelof. Lindelof's like, right, what do I do with the ball now? Do I pass it out to Wan-Bissaka? No, he's being marked. What's my next option? I've just got to send the ball up to Bruno or Rashford or Martial, Dan James, whoever, which luckily he can do most of the time. But because he's the get out for Maguire's panic, it's not helping him. Even I think if we can have defenders like, I really hate to say this, but if we had defenders like Bednarak and Vestergaard, where they're very calm, very composed on the ball, and they do pass around a lot. And Vestergaard, he has got a great boot on him. Like his passing out wide,
beautiful.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean,
but I think what we see with Bednarak and Vestergaard is they both play 2 entirely different roles as centre backs, whereas we see Maguire and Lindelof play identical roles. It's the same thing that I understand I'm biased with this, but it's the same thing we've seen with Zuma and Silva this season. Last year, we had players like Zuma, Rudiger, Tomori. They all played, even Christensen, they all played exactly the same roles. Playing them against each other is never going to work. Whereas now we have Zuma, and then he plays next to Thiago Silva. Zuma can be as rash or as wild as he wants, but Thiago Silva is always going to be composed. He's always going to be in the right position, and he's always going to be there to make that tackle. And I think that's something you need, is you can keep Maguire in that squad. He can be as rash and as violent and whatever he wants. He can do whatever he wants because he'll always have that partner next to him. He'll be composed. He'll be in the right position. They'll be making sure everyone else is doing what they need to be. And I think that's why Zuma's been so successful for us this season and almost outshone Thiago Silva in terms of neutral spectators. Zuma has seemed to be our defender this season, but what Thiago Silva has done to just shore up everything else and allow Zuma to play that like rash, almost, I don't know how to explain it, but he plays so over the top that it's so fun to watch. But what you're not seeing is what Thiago Silva's doing, and I think that's something you need in that back line. I think Maguire will be a really fun player to watch play because he will have that freedom to roam free, like maybe drive the ball up the field a little bit and spread those diagonal passes with a bit more conviction, because he knows that he has that ability, because then they have that general at the back who can pull Alex Telles and Wan-Bissaka in, or tell one of them to go and bring in McTominay to sit a little bit deeper. You just need that person who's just going to be screaming at everyone. They may not be touching the ball a lot or making key tackles or winning headers in the box and scoring goals, but they're going to be that person who is always going to be sitting in the middle of the pitch, commanding everyone else.
Yeah, it's true. Like, in terms of, realistically, if I was to say how this goes, for teams that we've got now in, obviously, the Premier League, and teams we've got right here in our chat who we support, Chelsea undoubtedly have a very good squad. They've got a lot of squad depth, and I reckon they will go far in the league. I really do, because no matter what happens, okay, aside fullback injuries, you can sort most of your players out. I mean, we've seen Pulisic get injured. What have you done? You just moved Werner out to the wing. He's not finishing, but he's getting assists. United as a squad, we don't have a lot of squad depth. We've got a load of players, but we don't have a lot of squad depth.
I think there's no direction with your squad at the moment. I think that's a problem. Whereas Frank Lampard came in and there was such a clear direction. He wanted to bring in young players. He wanted to play this really high press. He wanted to win the ball high up the pitch and attack with speed. And it almost feels like Ollie's kind of stuck in two minds about what he wants to play. Like, he seems to want to play Mourinho style of football, but he doesn't know how to coach it. And he wants to play Frank Lampard style of football, but he doesn't know how to coach it. So he's kind of stuck in the middle, and it kind of feels like your attackers are constantly pressing high up the pitch, but then everyone else is sitting back. So you may win the ball. Like, I've seen multiple times Rashford win the ball quite high up the pitch, pressing high, and then suddenly he's just lost on his own and then closed down by three players because there's no one there to support him. It feels like only when he's pressing, only Bruno is the one being mobile. And I've actually been quite disappointed by Martial this season. He could play such an integral role in this Man United squad. Like, literally, all he needs to do is sit on the back line, come deep for balls when they come in shallow. Like, if Bruno's got the ball, come for the option and let Rashford run in behind, almost play the Firmino role. And then if the ball's being spread out wide, just gun it up the middle. His pace is blistering. He's so quick off the mark. So if you get Bruno on the ball, spread the ball out to Rashford. Rashford can play that like very shallow diagonal ball right across the defenders. Martial will be bagging goals. I think his problem at the moment is I just don't think he's comfortable in the system he's playing. I think he was more comfortable when Moyes was in, when he was almost he could play out on that left-hand side and he'd almost be a second striker.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Kind of do whatever he wants. And that's kind of the role Rashford has adopted and is really shining at. So I think Martial's kind of lost, and I don't think Cavani particularly fits the system. Like, I think he does well as a target man, and I think he'll do good for you coming off the bench. He'll score goals here and there, but I don't think he fits the system. I really think you need to. I could honestly, if you implement the system correctly, I don't think Fred and McTominay are going to be problems playing defensive midfielders. But I think your problem right now is you need a centre forward who is going to score goals for you.
Yeah, that's true.
And fit the system. Even if they don't score goals, you just need someone who's going to either help with the press or be able to sit deeper and let your wingers exploit the space in behind. And I think Martial kind of doesn't do either, and neither does Cavani. You're kind of stuck in the middle with not really knowing what to do. But then at the moment, I don't think particularly there's any players who would fit that role that is available. I think one that stands out to me, and I know lots of people won't agree with this because obviously he's been having some problems at the moment, but I think Marcus Thuram is a fantastic player.
Oh,
I think he's similar to Martial, where he's a traditional winger, but he kind of sits in this striker role, and I think he'd actually kind of do what Martial does, but better. He will press if he has to, but if you give him a sight of goal, he will score goals. And it really impresses me how his ability to swivel on the ball and get an electric shot away. I think in the Premier League especially, I think he potentially fit your role. And I think if you do get like a player like Max Allegri, I think you may be looking to pull Chiellini away from Juventus, even if it's, as I said, for the Thiago Silva role, play a season or two, just to shorten maybe wait for you to coach up another one of your defenders to play that general role, or maybe bring in another more younger player to then play behind Chiellini and then take over that role.
I mean, luckily for us as well, not just this season, but last season, we've technically had like 12 players on the pitch. Because realistically, I mean, VAR has played a big role in what we did last season and what we're doing this season, because the amount of penalties we've won, the amount Bruno has scored, and I'm just thinking,
should play to that system. It's frustrating as a neutral to see, there we go, Bruno Fernandes scores another penalty. But with a penalty taker like Bruno Fernandes, where no matter how many times he takes a penalty in a game, he's going to score. You really should be exploiting those long diagonal balls where Rashford can get the wrong side of the defenders and they have no choice but to make a mistake. I think in a way that
what do you think with VAR? Do you think it should be something that the Premier League should continue and should be moved to the Championship?
My biggest problem with VAR at the moment
is to start building around VAR. Do you think teams should start building around VAR in terms of players that
I don't adapt that.
I don't think that will ever be a thing. But my thing is, I'm a huge American football fan. I watch it weekly, every game.
Yeah.
How it's implemented in American football is it's only clear and obvious decisions. It's there to assist the referees. It is not there to referee. I think the problem in the Premier League is the referees have been too dependent on it. The referees need to be making these calls and then using VAR to be like, I'm going to use this as an example, but like a couple seasons ago, we saw, I can't remember who it was, but there was a last-ditch tackle and it should have been a foul, but it wasn't. And if it would have been a penalty and it would have won the game and changed the result. I think it would have kept a team up or whatever. But I think in that case, the referees need to referee the decisions on the pitch. And then once the play is stopped, I agree with continuing play because I think it works well because it's either because then if the referees go back and then it's not a foul, they're like, okay, we played on, it doesn't matter, or it is a foul, it's like, okay, we'll go back and pull it. But you see a lot.
Yeah, I think it slows down the game a lot.
I agree, but I think what we see a lot in American football with like pass interference and stuff like that, the flags will come down and then they'll review it. Like they'll let the play go, the flags will come down and then they'll review it. And it's the same with every scoring play in American football is reviewed, no matter whether it's completely obvious or the most contentious thing you'll ever see. But I think the problem with the Premier League is these millimeter offside calls. It needs to be
it's literally a fingernail. And
like at the moment, the fact that a striker has to be so concerned that their shirt blows in the wind and calls them offside is ludicrous. It's
I think if you can't score it, if you can't score with it, it shouldn't be counted as offside. So if your finger's offside, there's no point in calling that. I also think
like if you have one toe offside, like is that clear? Like if the referee puts his flag up, is it clear and obvious he was onside to overturn it? If the referee's put his flag up and it's so close, it should go with the on-field decision. But they keep bringing in these like 1 millimeter offside calls, and I just don't understand.
It takes about 3 minutes each time, and if you're scoring like a 90th minute equaliser, and then they've got to go to VAR, and it takes 3-4 minutes. It breaks up the momentum completely.
With being on both sides of it this year, like you kind of you feel it both ways, and I still think either way, it's still it doesn't feel like it's helping. I feel like it's causing more problems than it's helping. I mean, so I think they need to sort out whether they want VAR to referee the game or whether they want it to assist the referees. Because I think too many times this season, the referees have relied on VAR to make the decisions for them.
And at this point, linesmen have...
Yeah, they're pointless. What's the point in having linesmen anymore? Like, we might as well just play on, be like, okay, they were offside, cool, let's pull it back.
Yeah, and then someone talks in the referee's ear, it's like, yeah, that was offside, call it.
I think, first of all, we need to hear what the referee is communicating with the VAR. We see it in Australian football, and we see it in American football. When the referees are communicating with the VAR, you can hear exactly what the referee and the VAR are saying. You can hear them talking to each other. You can hear the VAR saying, excuse me, Mr. Official, we believe that was a penalty. We think you should review it. And the referee might be like, I'm playing on, I saw that, I'll come back to it. Everyone can hear that. I understand the players on the field may not, but obviously then the managers will be able to hear that because that's what happens. The managers can hear it. The managers can convey the message. The players will know that no matter what, you play to the whistle, you continue. The referees are always communicating with the VAR at all times. There is a constant open communication. So you hear the referee go, okay, thank you, I've seen that. I'll come back to that in a minute. We'll see how play continues. Play continues. It breaks down. Right, okay. What do you think? Then the VAR official will be like, this is what I've seen. I've seen the player come in from behind. He has made a reckless tackle. I believe you should review it for a red card, possible red card. And the referee will be like, okay, I'll come to the monitor. You hear it. They say, am I on screen? Am I on screen? And they'll be like, all right, you're on screen. Then he blows the whistle, does the VAR signal, and then goes to the VAR and reviews it. And the whole time while he's standing there, when we as spectators are just looking at the players being bemused on the field or trying to get a sneaky camera angle over the referee's shoulder to the VAR, you hear constantly the referee being the VAR being like, right, we're about to display you the tackle here that we believe that there is reckless endangerment. You see here the player comes in from behind. As much as he gets the ball, he takes a decent amount out of the player. We believe this should be a red card. We would like you to take a look at this. So the referee will take a look. He'll be like, right, I've seen this tackle. Right, he's gone in from behind. I do agree with your decision. I think that's a red card. The whole time, every second, you can hear exactly what the referee's thinking and exactly what the VAR are thinking. And I think as spectators, that ability in the Premier League to be able to understand what's going on at every second is going to make the viewing experience for VAR better. But I also think for the players on the field, they'll know because they'll be able to see. I think they should also have on the big screen, pretty much if not every team in the Premier League has a big screen in the stand, should talk about, should say, VAR checking possible decisions, and the managers should all be able to hear exactly what the referee and the VAR are communicating, so they understand. Because then the players will always know that at every second, the managers will know what's going on and will be able to hear exactly. Because you won't have these contentions where afterwards players are getting booked for slagging off the referee for being like, that was a wrong decision. Because if the managers suddenly hear, because then it then becomes up to the managers to then be like, come on, what's going on here? I think that's going to be the best way as a viewer to fix VAR, but I also think we need to have the communication of, is this clear and obvious? And if so, reverse the call. If it's not clear and obvious, can you, as the referee, going to view this monitor, very distinctively make a decision to say for certain, without us having to draw millimeters, that he is offside?
Yeah. I mean,
for goal line technology, I agree. I actually like how goal line technology works. I think it should be reviewed to the millimeter because I think that's the fairest way to do it. If the ball crosses the line, the ball crosses the line. But I think the problem with I think the real big problem at the moment is these offside calls.
Yeah,
like a hand being offside.
The handball was a problem at the start, and then they reviewed it and immediately made a fix to it. And I don't think handballs are that much of an issue. I think still at times there's questionable calls, but I think that's just going to be the handball rule. It's that there's never going to be a defined. You're never going to be able to set out a defined set of rules of and it not cover every 100 million possibilities.
It's very difficult to say whether it was in an unnatural position or not.
Mm-hmm. But as a Bolton fan, obviously you're not seeing VAR with your club.
I'm not affected by it. And
how many times in a game do you think, okay, VAR may have been able to change and affect this call? Or do you think he's at your level, which is 3 tiers lower than the Premier League, can referee a game professionally without having to rely on technology?
I think they can. Obviously, there are a lot of decisions where you would question it, even with something like, which player has it come off to go out for either a goal kick or a corner. But I really don't think that VAR would make much of a difference. Like with the offside, it's normally quite obvious, and there is no need to go down to millimeters. You might get the other team complaining, but there really isn't a need to go to VAR to check those tiny little, half an arm being offside. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to make him run quicker to the ball. That arm being offside does literally nothing.
I agree. I think we need to review the whole offside rule in general and talk about whether being offside means a millimeter part of a body is offside, or them gaining an unfair advantage over the defender. Get to the ball.
If it's something like a foot or a head, something you can actually score with, then maybe
I don't completely agree with that, because I think if your bodies are both in the same position but your head is over their shoulder, I don't think that gives you that much of an advantage.
No, obviously, it doesn't. It's slight. It's so slight in terms of the way
it almost kills the game of running in. It almost kills the game of running in behind, because you can't run in behind anymore now, because
unless you're quicker, unless you're like rapid and you can genuinely outpace them.
Perfect example was in a game for Leeds. I can't remember who it was against, but basically Patrick Bamford is being given offside.
Palace.
Yeah, Crystal Palace, because he's pointed his finger out to show where he wants to be passed, and just slightly because his torso is on that side, he's going, oh yeah, we'll call it back. And I know as well, especially last season, we've had 56 goals that have been ruled out because of VAR. 27 goals have been scored because of VAR. And I know in terms of the way it has been for points-wise as well in terms of teams, you see Brighton would have gained the most from VAR. They've gained an extra 8 points from them. Man United gained 7. Chelsea have lost 3. Arsenal have lost 4. I don't know whether it's coming about or not, because it's still showing this season. Some players and some fans as well were saying that VAR is biased, and so obviously I want to get opinions. So Abby, what do you think on VAR being biased? Do you think it is, or do you think it's not?
I don't think it is. I think the main issue in terms of, if you want to call it bias, is sometimes the drawing of the lines. You see on some of the instances where the lines are fully straight down in line, and then sometimes you see it's all wiggly all over the place. I don't think there's any consistency in that form. And as the other guys have said, with the toe being offside, Bamford somehow being offside, and the other day with Maddison, I didn't think Maddison was offside. If you just look at it, and obviously Leicester are a big team, Spurs are a big team, you say whose favour has that worked in? Obviously in that instance it's worked in Spurs' favour, but then it hasn't helped Leicester. I think if you look at it from your own eyes and see it as straight on, I think it's easier to call it that way, especially if it's really, really tight like that. It's not a clear and obvious decision as what VAR is supposed to do and assist the referee. And for instances like that, I think Maddison's goal should have been given. But as to whether that's going to change is another question.
What do you think about that as well, Josh? Because obviously as a Southampton fan, last season, you were basically given -1 point in terms of VAR assisting you. You've been hard done by 1 point. What do you think on that? Do you think it's still worth it? Do you think it could be a lot better in some teams? Do you think it's favouring teams? Because I feel for me, it does favour Man United a lot last season. We had, I'm not going to lie, Bruno.
Penalty.
It was penalty after penalty, and Bruno was being a bit stupid and diving in the box. So what do you think, being Southampton? Because you didn't get that many penalties, and Danny Ings scored any.
Well, Danny Ings, if we take away his penalties from last season, he scored the most goals. But VAR, I think it all just comes down to that saying clear and obvious, and I don't think they're not using it. They're not using it. So with these offside calls or these fouls or anything like that, if it's not clear and obvious, just don't bother spending minutes and minutes reviewing it. It's just pointless. So I think we had something in the area. It was against. Who was it against? It was against Man City. It was against Man City. It was against Man City. Yeah. So Danny Ings went to go head the ball, and I can't remember which defender it was. Put their boot right up in the air, and it made him close his eyes. Yeah, I think it was Stones. It made him close his eyes, so he didn't really proper get the direction correct. But when you're looking back in it on slow-mo and everything like that, it's not clear and obvious, which is fair enough.
Would you say, in your opinion, that impeded Danny Ings' header? Because I know in the call they said, it's a high. Mark Clattenburg said afterwards, he said it's a high boot. He goes, but the thing is, it hasn't impeded Danny Ings' header. Do you think it did?
I think from looking at replays and stuff like that, you can clearly see that he was first there. He was there already to head the ball, but it's just that last minute, just before he headers it, that last little second where he just has to close his eyes because the boot's there.
But I think
that's just a natural reaction. So I don't think it can be seen as clear and obvious, and therefore it's not a penalty. But then again, it did kind of impede him. It's just not obvious that it did to the VARs, which is fair enough. I can see why it wasn't given as a pen. I think we got robbed that game, but
I know another main topic that's been going about as well has been the inconsistency of the Prem as well. Loads of people have been saying that, especially this season, the Premier League has been so inconsistent with results. We've had 0-0 draw, obviously West Brom and Burnley, which most people had predicted. We've had many various results where we've had obviously United and Chelsea a 0-0 draw. We've had Leeds United losing 4-3 on the first day. What do you think of that? Do you think the Premier League is very inconsistent now, or?
I wouldn't say inconsistent. I just think that all the teams in the league are just. I think it's one of very few top division leagues in the world that on any given match day you can guarantee results.
Okay.
I just think that right now we're seeing Arsenal sitting in 15th.
Yeah.
Obviously Sheffield United are last, West Brom are last, Fulham are last. Those teams you expect to not get results, but that doesn't mean they won't.
I think
But is it that case of like just because they've like Arsenal, just because they're called Arsenal and like 2000s they were doing well, just because it's their name, they're expected to win and expected to do things.
I think
but
the problem
fact,
in the Premier League
you can
is
see
that
they don't have a good
discipline.
squad. They're not
I feel like it
performing.
does go round. I feel like it does go round. I know we don't perform as Man United. We don't perform how we used to with Ferguson, and everyone comes back to that point. I mean, Roy Keane touches in all the time. He goes, Man United are a big club. But the thing is, are we really a big club anymore? I know, obviously, we do push the top 4 every season and that, but we're not pushing for a title.
I think the definition of a big club has changed, though.
It has,
the definition of a big club 20 years ago was who's the most successful, and the definition of the big club now is who's the biggest business.
Man United
the most expensive players.
Man United have still got a big budget for the transfer window. It's just
we played against Leeds when we in that game when we played against Leeds. The problem we had, the one thing that every Leeds fan was saying, and I know this for a fact because basically all my family are Leeds fans. They were all saying, what's the point? You're like half the players on your bench just alone are more expensive than our whole team. We have Van der Beek who's sat on our bench, 40 million. Okay, we got Alex Telles on our bench as well, 45 million. Them two combined are worth more, I think, even double the Leeds squad because half the players Leeds have got it's still their same championship team. They've got Rodrigo that's different, Rafinha that's different. That's it. I think everybody else is the same.
I
think Leeds are a prime example of what we've seen over the last couple of years is newly promoted teams coming and being successful in the Premier League. I think there's so much money in the Premier League now that it's become a bit of a problem that these top tier clubs can spend as much money as they want, but it doesn't mean they're gonna get results. Because this Leeds United team have already been playing for at least a year, if not, you'd probably say 2 years now. Prior to this season, they've been playing together, minus a few adjustments here or there. They've been playing together for the last 2 years. What other team in the Premier League can say that they've had a consistent squad where they've only had a few changes? Mainly the lower half of the table. And they're the ones who seem to get these results out of nowhere that you kind of don't expect. And I think Southampton this year are really an example of this.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think Leicester City as well over the last few years. They've kind of just plugged the holes where they've had a few inconsistent players and maybe where they need a bit more consistent performances. But as a whole, that Leicester squad has not changed that much over the last 2 or 3 seasons. But we see teams like Chelsea, Man United, Everton. They've changed their teams quite drastically over the last years, and they've been getting quite inconsistent results. And I think it's definitely showing that teams really need time to gel, and the chemistry that these players get with each other can cause them to fight as a squad to get results, not just rely on these individual players that some of the higher teams are getting, which is why I'm liking that teams like Leeds United, Southampton, stuff like that have been getting some good results this year because they have been relying on their chemistry, not the value of their players.
I think the inconsistencies of results are massively down to the lack of fans, though. You've got clubs like Arsenal who have massive stadiums. Granted, they might not have the best team this year, but I really don't think they'd be losing as many games as they have been without the fans. Or take the Crystal Palace match this last weekend, for example. Losing 7-0 at home to Liverpool. I mean, you'd expect them to maybe not win, but I just score lines like that, and even low down these with Bolton, we would not. I really don't think if we had even like 10,000-15,000 fans in the stadium, we wouldn't be losing 6-3 at home to Port Vale, just because that home advantage. So having those fans. That backing is so important. Fans chanting your name. It just gives a bit of motivation, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Brown, what do you think? Because you're a Southampton fan, and obviously you've still got fans at home because you're in tier 2, like that you love to boast about. So, what do you think about that? Tier 2, eh?
I'm not sure about it, to be honest, because not as when I'm watching the games, like when I was watching the Man City game, to me, it visually, watching it on the screen, it didn't really make a difference because there's only 2,000 of them. Like, I know they're still loud and stuff like that, but I think everyone just got used to having the crowd noise. So, like, you don't really see the difference. But with the players, I don't know. I think we were very unlucky in that game, but we had the fight throughout. And I don't know if that's, but if I'm comparing that how we were playing against Man City then to how we were at the beginning of the season when there were no fans, I don't think there's much difference with us.
I think it's something Tottenham have taken into their advantage. They've really played demoralising football. Their goal is to just keep cracking at these players that they're playing against. So you just looking at the opposition that Tottenham play, no matter the result, they could be 0-0. Like when we played them, it ended 0-0. Our players just look so deflated by the end of the game. They just use the ability where there's no fans to back the players on the field. They can just play such demoralising football that playing against it is just such a chore. Like it's almost like these players want to just get off the field. It's really strange to watch.
I remember watching that game, the Tottenham and Chelsea game, and I obviously as a neutral fan. As a neutral fan for me, I thought it was like a decently average game just because of the tactics played by both managers. But obviously, if you were someone who is even more neutral than me, so one that's not a particular football fan or doesn't support a team but just wants to watch it, it wasn't the best of games. I know certainly Abby had said to me she was frustrated over the game. I definitely remember you saying that.
Yeah, I
so
was.
What do you think? What do you think about that, Abby? Do you agree with Tyler in terms of Tottenham have taken to their advantage, or?
I think Mourinho only went into that game wanting not to lose. And he knew that he could play all 11 men behind the ball and get a result. I mean, Kane ended up in centre defensive mid at one point.
It felt like they had about 16 players defending for him.
Yeah, there were so many players, and obviously we tried to. All we kept doing is passing it from Reece James across our centre backs, off to Chilwell, pass out the wing again, and it just kept coming back like a vicious circle. I mean, there was no way we could break down their eventual back five with their three in the middle. It just wasn't happening, and I mean, he came not to lose, and we got a point and just got to move on from there. It was like same Man United though, but that was an even worse game, which was
we
also
were atrocious against Man United though.
Yeah, they were as well. It was afraid to lose.
Bad. So, in terms of summing up what we've had this Premier League season, and obviously for Oliver, our dear friend in League Two, in just one word or one position, where do you think your team will finish? We'll start off with Ollie in League Two. Where do you think Bolton will finish?
I'm gonna be optimistic here, and I'm gonna say fifth.
I reckon fifth. Okay.
Tyler, you'll get promoted.
Yeah, I do. I think if we end up in the playoffs, I think we definitely have a chance of getting promotion.
Very nice. Tyler, where do you think Chelsea will finish in the league?
Honest
opinion.
I'm actually gonna stick with my prediction that I made right at the start of the season before I'd even seen us play. I had predicted us to finish second, and I still think that's a very big possibility. I think that relies heavily on the squad gelling.
Okay.
I think it's going to be the difference between us finishing second and us finishing sixth.
Yeah.
I think if we can get Timo and we can get Kai working at their best again, even if it's the last 2 months of the season and we just need to grind out those results and make sure that other teams like Tottenham and Man United, who have notoriously dropped points at the end of seasons, and just hope that Arsenal are going to struggle to pick up any kind of form and hopefully finish outside the top six, then the only kind of teams we've got to worry about are teams like Man City, who again don't look great. But then apart from that, you've got your Southamptons, your Evertons, those teams who don't have the depth for a full season of this high intensity football that they're playing at the moment. I feel like with results going our way, we can definitely aspire. I don't think Liverpool can be beat this season. I think they're going to go another season. I think they finally found their footing that they needed, and this 7-0 win is just going to kick them off. And the terrifying thought that they still have Thiago Alcantara, still got Jota to come back from injury, Van Dijk and Gomez to come back from injury, and their squad's putting out these results. Like, it's terrifying. That Liverpool squad is really something that every team in the Premier League need to aspire to try and get results out of.
Fair enough. Abby, what do you think? Do you agree with Tyler? Do you think Chelsea finish second?
I agree.
You reckon?
I mean, I was very optimistic at the beginning of the season. I was like, oh yeah, we're going to win the league. But no,
Yeah.
like obviously being realistic and having a lot of new players, and as Tyler said, gelling. I mean, I would be happy with second place. For sure. I mean, obviously finishing fourth last season when we could have probably finished third.
I think
Yeah.
we should finish second last year.
Yeah. I mean, obviously anywhere above fourth is a success for this season. But with the amount of money we spent, I don't think third's good enough for us. I think second has to be the aim, and obviously possibly first. But as you said, I think Liverpool are too good, so I'll be happy with second.
Fair enough. And then, Josh, what do you think for Southampton? Do you think they're still going to win the league, like you said last week?
I'm gonna keep it there. I'm gonna keep it there. Win the league.
You're still going to keep
the
league.
Then now we're gonna win the league. If I'm gonna be like extremely realistic, like
that's
throughout the whole season, I'm gonna go with a if I can speak, a Europa League spot. Because I think we need at least that to keep some of the players that we've got, like Danny Ings. I think he's a 20 goal a season. If he stays fit, he's a 20 goal a season man.
World-class player.
Literally, and I think we need to finish in a Europa League spot to make sure that we don't lose certain players to certain clubs, especially with Ward-Prowse's season as it's going. I think people will be looking at him like Tottenham looked at Højbjerg to try and nick him away. But I think if we do finish in Europa League spot, we'll keep our players, and we might even be able to, because we're still in profit when we do that sort of our business for the transfer season. I think we'll be able to start signing more players for a bit more of a bench boost than
fair enough.
Because we kind of only have younger players sitting on the bench. I know we have Redmond at the moment. I think Redmond should be starting. But I don't think he can play. Yeah, I don't think he can play a full 90 at the moment, and I think that's why he's on the bench. But I do think we need a couple more people on the bench that can come on in the attacking positions, because at the moment against Man City we brought on a couple of youngsters. They didn't play bad; they just ran at them, which I loved. But I just don't think they have the football smart yet.
Right, Josh, if say a Man United or an Arsenal comes in for like 60, 70 mil for Ings, do you do it?
No.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really think that would happen. I know
I don't want to.
As a United fan, we'd want Danny Ings, but we wouldn't go in with that high, and then the deal wouldn't be done. I know what I feel like for us. I feel like we can get. I reckon we can get top 4. I don't know whereabouts we would get it. I would like to say we'd finish second, but knowing us, we probably won't. We'll probably scrape into top 4 like we did last season. That's what my honest opinion is.
I do think it's going to be fight for second between United, City and Chelsea.
I agree.
Yeah,
it will be a war. It's going to take the whole season.
To be honest, it doesn't really matter who finish. It doesn't really matter though who finishes second, third, or fourth. It's still Champions League is Champions League. Like for me, like last season, okay, we came third and Chelsea came fourth. Didn't really make that much of a difference. I didn't really care too much. As okay, cool, we've just got Champions League. That's for me. That's all that made a difference.
Okay, because the schedule is going to be tight so as we all know, the Euros have been moved till this summer, which has caused the Premier League schedule to crampen up at the end of the season. If you've already secured fourth place, do you give up third and fourth to make sure you don't get your players injured?
Yeah, 100%.
Or sorry, second or third. Because I honestly, there is nothing in the Premier League that rewards you for coming second, third, or fourth. So it is kind of just whoever's the next bet. Obviously, unless it's a tight, like proper title race, then first and second's significant because it's who's battling. But if this season goes how I think it is, with Liverpool flying ahead, they're already 6 points clear. Obviously, I understand Man United have got a game in hand, but with how inconsistent Man United have been with performances this year, and probably Liverpool kicking on, that's probably going to become 9 or 10 quite quickly. Would you, knowing that your players have got a summer of quite intensive football, especially some of your bigger players who predominantly the Chelsea, Man United squads and quite a lot of the squads of the Premier League are quite European player heavy, knowing that a lot of them are going to be going and playing high intensity competitive football in the summer, are you going to be resting them later on in the season to make sure they're coming back fully fit into next season?
I mean, for me, I'd say I would rest them just just because I know our squad depth. I know we haven't got that much, so I know we'd rest him. I think Josh would probably say the same in terms of Southampton because theirs isn't so deep. They've just got loads and loads of youngsters. Would you agree, Josh?
Yeah, or youngsters.
Yeah.
That's our bench at the moment, except for a couple players.
What about you, Abby? Do you reckon you'd rest players if you'd secured second or third?
Yeah, I think if there's no chance of reaching Liverpool, in my opinion, then there's no point of risking any of the main players and getting ready for the Euros, especially the England players with Chelsea having a few as well.
Yeah,
Probably some starters as well. I think Mount will start for Southgate, in my opinion.
Agree.
I think Tammy might play a role, but obviously he'll pick Kane.
yeah.
And then who else you got? I mean, Tomori won't be in the picture. I think Reece James and Chilwell will both be our fullbacks in a wing back system. But yeah, no, if you can't catch Liverpool, who I think will finish first, then no point risking it really.
Fair enough. All right, that's all we've got time for here on the bench. I'd just like to say a big thank you to Ollie and Tyler for joining us this week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully you've enjoyed this, and we will do it again next week, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, after the Boxing Day games, 27th, 28 games.
Indeed.
And we'll also have the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, we will also have that.
Semi-finals will be drawn.
We love that.
Indeed.
That is goodbye from me and the rest of the On the Bench squad. Take care.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.